Hello, y'all. This here's your Christian Trucker, and this is my story, episode 16. We're going to talk about high school dating. In early high school, I wasn't really interested in the girls of my age and younger because they just were not mature enough. They didn't have the freedom that I had to go out on dates and to go and do stuff. Because, when I turned 12, I started working. My folks pretty much turned me loose. I had my own car. I had my own job. I paid all my own bills. I bought all my clothes. I was pretty much on my own. As long as I didn't fail a grade of school, as long as I didn't come in drunk or driving drunk or anything, serious like that, I was good. As long as I showed up for work and I did my job and I did my schoolwork, my parents were okay with it. So I had a lot more freedom as a child than most children did. So when I got into early high school, I started noticing the older ladies that were there. And there was this one particular day, me and my friends were in study hall in the library. We always sat in the back because we were always keeping up a ruckus and getting in trouble. But I think Mike was there. I'm not for sure. But we were sitting in there, and I noticed this person walking back and forth up in the front of the room. Turned out she was single. And she would come and sit at our table. And eventually we started dating. Well, our first date, I took her to a park, and this park had horses. Well, like I said, I worked all the time, so it was like a Saturday afternoon more than likely. Well, we went to the park, and they had already been riding the horses most of the day. They must have got started early. Well, the horses were sweaty, they were tired, and these people, they let us get on the horses. I mean, they shouldn't have. They should have went ahead and put the horses in the stable and took care of them, but they let us get on the horses and try to ride them. Well, she was only like 95 pounds, so her horse didn't really care that she was on her back. Well, when I got up on the horse, on my horse, big old white horse, it sat down. It laid down, and then it just almost rolled over on my leg. You talk about embarrassing. Now, I was not fat. I was pretty fit. I was strong, and I was big, and I was fit. But that horse didn't want nothing to do with me. It was like, you got to get off of me, sucker. So I was really embarrassed. We ended up having to leave the horse stables and go find other things to do on our date. So you would think, from that first date experience that it would have been a travesty the whole time. And it ended up being a travesty of a relationship because we dated off and on. And, well, she was a black belt, but she wasn't big enough to hardly do any damage. She could punch you, but her punches were not hard enough to do much to you. She had a Corvette that she could drive occasionally, and this Corvette, man, it was black, had T-top, had airbrushing on the hood and sides of like barbarian scenes, and all. It was cool. It was really cool. And her folks really liked me. Her dad was like a 5th-degree black belt. He's the one that taught her. And he was pretty cool. Actually, I think it was her stepdad. And we would go hunting. We would take our 410s out there. And they had this dog, y'all. This dog, she was like a pit bull mix. And she was like a high yeller. I mean, she was almost a really bright yellow. And this dog, if you shot firecrackers, if you would throw a bottle rocket or any kind of firecracker in the yard, this dog would run over there and grab that firecracker and it would blow up in its mouth. And she would do it repeatedly. Any firework, anything like that, she had to go after it. And it was funny, but see, Patty was able to go places and we drank and we both smoked. And she did a few things extra, let's just say, which led her down different paths in life. And, well, we would go to parties occasionally, and we would have parties occasionally, which I was always having parties at my house. Anytime my parents left, everybody was at my place. We had just about anything you could want at my house. But, you know, she loved my truck. And the first time we broke up, it was because I wrecked one of my trucks. And she was in love with that truck apparently more than she was with me at that time. Because when I wrecked that truck, that same week, she ditched my butt, man. She ditched me. It was over. Well, you know, eventually we got back together and dated for a while. I went to 2 proms with her, if I'm not mistaken. I went on my sophomore and my junior. And I went the senior year with somebody else. And each time we went, we would go with a group of friends also. So it was like we would have our pictures, and then we would have our group of friend pictures. And it was all pretty cool. I never really was one for the prom. At our school, we didn't stay for the music because they played music that we didn't get with. You know, it was always the pop stuff. And we were more into the country and southern rock stuff, and they never played any of that. So we would go for our pictures, and then we would go to the parties afterwards. And the parties is what it's all about. We got dressed up just for the pictures to make the families happy and to say we did prom. And then we left, and we couldn't wait to go and put on our street clothes and go have a good time. Usually on the banks of the Pearl River. So, one year my family decided to go on a vacation, Mom and Dad did, right close to Christmas. And they were going all through Christmas. I want to say it was to Jamaica. I'm not for sure on that. They did go to Jamaica once or twice, and they brought me back some rum. Matter of fact, for my 16th birthday, they bought me a boom box and a case of Budweiser. That was awesome. For me then. That was just the life that I was raised in. Anyway, her family were going to move. And she could have stayed. All the opportunities were there to stay. My parents liked her so much they would have let her move in with us. But she left with them right before Christmas. Everybody was going at Christmas. My folks, everybody. So that was one of the first Christmases I got to spend all by my lonesome. Me and old, usually Jack Daniels or Budweiser and Marlboro Reds and Pall Malls or Camels. I did like those sometimes too. But Mom, when she got back, old girl got down there and she wasn't happy. So she called back. I didn't find this out till a couple years later, actually. She called our house, because this was before cell phones. Nobody had cell phones back then. Matter of fact, it was just before pagers, or pagers might have been coming out. Anyway, Mom picked up the phone, and it was her on the other end, and Mom basically told her she best not come around. And if you knew my mom, if she told you better not do something, you didn't do it. You know, she would be on you like white on rice. She didn't care. She had zero fear. So I never did see that one again, and I probably never will. I've heard stories about where and what's going on with her, and Lord knows I'm glad I didn't end up with that one. You know, that you have to think about that song, I thank God for unanswered prayers, because when you're young you think you want things, but when you grow old you're so glad you don't end up with those things. That was, you know, such a story, because when you're that age you think the whole world is caving in around you and something like that goes on, but in actuality it's the best thing that could ever happen to you. But she was there whenever we had the big house, and then once we lost everything and went to the old house, she wouldn't have been around no way. So, you know, it all works out great, you know, because this time of life we didn't have movies and nice restaurants in our town. What we had was creeks and rivers and lakes with 4-wheel drives, 4-wheelers, 3-wheelers, and race cars. that coupled with alcohol and drugs and cigarettes, that was what we had when we were coming up. We fought, but we didn't have gyms. We didn't have boxing gyms or Golden Glove tournaments anywhere around us. What we had was headlights. We'd park the cars in a circle and we would get out there in the headlights and we would duke it out. Anybody had a problem, they better not be scared to throw them hands, because we threw them every weekend. And I'll get into that in some of the future videos. Some of the great matches of history that y'all never knew of. Well, my folks didn't want me to have a four-wheeler until I could buy it myself. Well, finally, I bought me a four-wheeler. I bought me a 1995 Yamaha Big Bear four-wheel drive, I believe. I know it was four-wheel drive. I think it was a 350 or something like that. I can't remember. It's been so many years ago. It was dark blue. It was cool. That thing was like a submarine in the creek. But see, all the older kids and older guys and gals, they had four-wheelers and they went and they rode the creeks every weekend. And I had this black Ford Ranger with a long wheelbase. And first week I had that four-wheeler, I was loading it up in that truck, and that front bumper on that four-wheeler went in and busted that front windshield in that little truck. Anyway, but it had one of those that you could slide and reach in the back, and we always kept our cooler of beer back there. But once I got the bike, it was crazy, because you could go and put big coolers on the top of your bike in the back of your truck, load it down with beer, and the cops would never check your coolers. You know, all the years that I had that four-wheeler on the back of that truck, riding through town, going to ride the river and stuff and go camping, I don't think I ever had my cooler checked by a cop. It was kind of crazy. You know, it's kind of like advertising. We have beer. We're probably not supposed to, but we have it in the cooler. You know, so that was kind of strange now that I think back on it. But yep, we got that four-wheeler, and then on top of that, I got a Ford Bronco. One of the full-size Broncos. It was brown with a tan top. I didn't have it for very long, but my grandpa ended up paying it off, because what happened is I bought it and they had rigged the odometer. So they had to actually pay off the truck. And my grandfather ended up with it somehow or another. I'm not sure how that deal worked out. Anyway, he ended up with it and he gave it to my mom and dad. And I ended up riding in the old Dodge truck. I got messed around on that deal, man. Anyway, but before I got rid of it, we took that thing up and down the creek. The creek that we had, it was called Fair River, and it was pretty shallow. And that Bronco did really good because I had sand tires on it. I had 2 women in the front, and I had one larger woman in the back, and it had that little short bench in the back, and we were going up and down in sand dunes, and she went up in there and she come down and she broke the back of that seat, and it always looked like a moon where her big old rump hit it. And I call her a big old rump because I ain't real crazy about her anymore. I think she's kind of a bad person, and I should really ask forgiveness for that. I'm sorry, but you know, I'm only human. Now the four-wheeler, I got in trouble with it from the landowner that let us go down to the river, because I had 2 girls on the front, 1 girl behind me, and 2 girls on the back going down the hill to the creek. Well, he come out of there and he was not happy with me. He said, "Don't ever let me see you doing that again. You get somebody killed." But see, the thing is, wasn't nobody gonna get killed. That bike was a hoss. And when we would be going up and down through the creeks, water coming over the handlebars, that thing just going boop, 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 boop. It just keep Cadillacing. And the crazy thing is, I hadn't even run the piping and everything. Every now and then, you know, you'd crash it or roll it over in the water, and you'd have to dump the water out in the carburetor and all that, and out the cylinder and then crank it up. But that was a tough old bike. But the other thing we like to do, and when we would go on dates and such, would be we would go float the other river, which is Boca Chica River. And you could get inner tubes and stuff. I think they actually closed that down because they were having too many people coming down there, throwing out bottles and getting in drunks and fights. But we went down there quite a few times. Well, I'm out of time this week. God bless, and we'll catch you on the next ride.